Today, we are going to be talking about the PlayStation 5 and Project Scarlett, the next generation consoles for both Sony and Microsoft, and we're going to be focusing on this recent rumor that seems to have cropped up regarding the power factor and how seemingly there is a chance here that the next generation PlayStation is actually going to end up being more powerful than the next generation Xbox. Now, there's a few things we have to take into consideration here regarding this rumor is that, well, first of all, it's just a rumor, so we really don't know. We're not going to really know for sure until both Sony and Microsoft reveal the official specifications to us in great detail. Another thing we need to keep in mind is that there was a lot of talk, and there has been a lot of talk, that Microsoft has this plan to release two versions of Project Scarlett come next generation, and there were code names floating around. There was Xbox Lockhart and Xbox Anaconda. Now, Xbox Anaconda was seemingly supposed to be the higher-end Xbox console for next generation, basically the next generation equivalent of the Xbox One X. And if there's something that I think Microsoft made pretty clear during their E3 presentation when talking about Project Scarlett, is that that was the console they were referring to. But at the same time, they didn't make any mention of there being two consoles, like a more, a less powerful version of Project Scarlett, a cheaper version. They didn't really make any mention to that. I don't even know if they alluded to that. I would have to go back and listen to it, but for all intents and purposes, we're just going to kind of consider it like one console right now. I said this in my last video, but until they confirm it, that's how I'm going to view it. And yeah, so now there's a rumor going around that apparently the PlayStation 5 may end up being more powerful than the Xbox Scarlett. So it says, well, a next generation of consoles is coming, and you know what that means? Good old-fashioned console warring. While the gaming industry is changing and what hardware actually means is potentially shifting, it won't stop the speculation and the angry fans butting heads to see whose system is going to be the best. The first bullet to put in the chamber comes from speculation by Game Informer's Andrew Reiner that Sony's PlayStation 5 is going to be more powerful than the next Xbox. In a tweet from his official Twitter, which you can see below, Reiner talks about a rumor that he's been hearing that the PS5 will actually be the more powerful of the two systems. That would be an eerie echo of this generation, since the base PS4 ended up having a pretty decent power advantage over the Xbox One, though this was flipped with the mid-gen refresh. Of course, it's just speculation from Reiner. It's impossible to tell right now. We have a basic understanding of what the specs for Scarlett will be now, and it's pretty hefty, so it's hard to imagine a system significantly more powerful that would be remotely affordable. Only time will tell. And to quote Andrew Reiner's tweet, he says, rumors before the show say that PS5 is more powerful than Project Scarlett, but we'll see. Now, I like Andrew Reiner. I mean, I listen to him sometimes on Game Informer's podcast. He seems pretty respectable, honestly. He has been in the industry for a long time, and he certainly, I'm sure, hears things that he isn't obviously allowed to talk about. But I just think that this is extremely interesting because, you know, he doesn't say much here. That's the thing. He's not saying where he's hearing these rumors. He's just very vague about it. I'm sure if he's hearing it from anybody, he's probably hearing it from developers, potentially. That's just my guess. But either way, it does make for some very interesting speculation. And the thing that is important to pay attention to is that when Microsoft revealed the soft specs for Project Scarlett, they were very, very similar, if not identical in almost every way, to what Sony said about the PlayStation 5. Now, we know that Microsoft has really seemingly been putting a lot of emphasis towards the end of this generation with the Xbox One X on the power factor and the power advantage. And you would assume that is something that they want to continue with going into the next generation, especially knowing how this generation started out with the PS4 and the Xbox One. because Sony, I think, also appreciated having that significant power advantage with the PS4, the base model PS4 anyway. And so while I do believe at this point the power really isn't going to matter much, I do think it would be a very interesting turn of events if, after everything Microsoft did with the Xbox One X, and especially, with all of the Xbox fans, I mean, there's no denying there's been a lot of conversation and a lot of just discussion about how Xbox Anaconda or Project Scarlett is most certainly going to be the most powerful console. The writing's on the wall. That's just how it's going to be. That's what the rumors are saying. Microsoft has made it clear. It would just be a really interesting turn of events if by the time we actually get the official specs for both of these consoles, somehow the PS5 ends up, even if it's just by a little bit, being more powerful than Project Scarlett. Now, in the end, will it matter? No, it won't. I know that there's a lot of people who think, oh, of course, now because they're saying that the PlayStation 5 might be the most powerful next-gen console, of course MBG is going to celebrate that and make it seem like power matters. I'm not actually. While it will be good, that would be a good thing, I think, for PlayStation fans, of course, it's not going to matter, because the thing that we need to understand here is that when it comes to both of these consoles, they're going to be very, very similar. And regardless of whether or not one of them is more powerful than the other, I promise you that you're going to see the law of diminishing returns kick in, where the difference between the two will be negligible. It's going to be very difficult to really tell. And I say this because both Sony and Microsoft do need to keep that price point in mind. And there's really only so much more that each console manufacturer can pack into their next generation console to make it the most powerful console before they're going to have to think about the cost of it, the pricing. Now, we know that I think both Microsoft and Sony are probably willing to sell their hardware at a loss if they have to, but there's still only a certain point there. They can really only sell it at a loss. Once it hits a certain dollar point, they really can't go beyond that, because then they're taking too much of a risk, and they're extending the amount of time it would take to see that money come back, over time. So with all of this being said, I have to say that it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this all ends up panning out, because right now it's anybody's game when it comes to the power factor. I think Sony has made it pretty clear, though, that whatever the PlayStation 5 ends up being, it will be a next-gen machine. And one other interesting thing I need to point out here that we need to focus on with what Sony has had to say about the PlayStation 5, and something that the Sony executives, or the PlayStation executives, have been emphasizing, is that they're not, at least if you listen to what they're saying, basically, it seems to me like they're not really expecting people to be jumping on board with the next generation consoles the same way they were with the current generation, with like the PlayStation 4. And I think the only reason for that is because a lot of people are very happy with the PS4 or the PS4 Pro, and there's still a lot of games coming to these consoles, and they want it to kind of be like a smooth, and I think they're expecting a softer transition, and they're trying to, as they put it, make it as easy as possible. And Microsoft also put a lot of emphasis on this as well. They're trying to make it as easy and seamless as possible for people who do want to upgrade to the next generation consoles to do so. So it's going to be just interesting to see, what the pricing of these consoles is going to be. If the PlayStation 5 were to be more powerful than the next generation Xbox Scarlett, does that mean it would be more expensive? Maybe, maybe not. I think it's doubtful. If I'm being honest, all signs are pointing to these consoles launching at the same price point, that price point being $500. Microsoft proved that they can, or that they are willing, I should say, to sell a console at $500, not only with the original Xbox One, but with the Xbox One X as well. And Sony, even though they like that $400 price point, I think they also realize that what's going to matter more to the people who care about upgrading to the next generation console is seeing those significant improvements and benefits. And people certainly will be willing, I believe, to pay a little bit more to see that and to get that in return. And so I think they're both going to launch at $500. And, you know, if we find out when these specifications come out that the PlayStation 5 is, you know, somehow a little bit more powerful or actually edges out Project Scarlett, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I would be pretty shocked by that. I'd be like, how did Sony manage to pull that off? How did Microsoft not manage to retain that power factor? Now, the only justifiable reason I could see Microsoft not really caring about that and them trying, pretty much saying, you know what, it's okay if PlayStation has a slightly more powerful console, is if they change their plans and they decide that they do just want to release a single SKU that launches for $500 rather than launching two. Because here's the thing I want to say, and I'll end this video with. If Microsoft really is planning to release two different versions of Project Scarlett, a cheaper, more affordable version for like the more casual market for like $350 or even $400, you know, and you will see benefits probably in the frame rates, definitely from the CPU side of things. If that's their goal, and then they want to have a more powerful monster console, you know, you heard what they said. This console eats monsters for breakfast, so clearly they're trying to say, hey, it's going to be extremely powerful. If that was the Xbox Anaconda console they're talking about, the more powerful version, it would make no sense, in my opinion, if that console, you know, ended up actually being somewhat less powerful than the PlayStation 5, when Sony, as far as we know, and based off of their track history, or their track record, I should say, it seems like they're just going to be releasing one SKU. They might not, we don't know for sure, but I would, you know, that's what I would say they're probably going to do. That would just make no sense in my opinion, and it would really, in my opinion, just hurt Microsoft's image and make them look kind of foolish, you know? So, I don't know. I mean, in the end, though, I do have to say, like, the power is really not going to matter that much. All I know is that going into next generation, we're going to see the best looking games we've ever seen. We are going to see some major improvements, not just in graphical fidelity and resolutions, obviously, and frame rates, which is always amazing and always great, but we're going to see it in other areas with like the SSD and load times and hopefully new features and stuff like that, stuff that's going to actually make a big impact on our overall gaming experience and not just the way our games look and play. So, yeah, interesting stuff here. You know, we're going to have to wait to see how this all pans out. At this point, I'm going to ask you guys to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Do you think there's a chance the PlayStation 5 could actually somehow end up being the more powerful of the two next-gen consoles? Or do you think that maybe this is just a rumor that somebody started for whatever reason just to get the conversation going, and that's not going to be the case? I will be very interested to see what you guys have to say. Be sure to leave this video a like if you did enjoy it. Really helps me out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon so you can be notified anytime I upload a new video. And feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.